Yeah, welcome everybody to our today's seminar on reducing costs and routes to market as part of the in-transit coaching activities towards the innovation voucher applications. So I see people putting in where they're from into the chat. That's nice to have. So we have Slovenia, Greece, Czech Republic, so from right across Europe, Italy. So it's great to see everybody today. I'll hand over. My name is Dr. John Cosgrove. I'm the Director of Smart Manufacturing at the IDEAM Research Centre, which is in Toulouse, Technological University of the Shannon, based in the west of Ireland. And I'm joined by my colleague today, Dr. Camilla Bibbiano. Camilla, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another in-transit group webinar. I'm Research Project Coordinator in IDEAM Institute, and mainly for the European projects. And I'll be supporting Dr. John on this presentation today. I think we can get started. How many people we have already in there? 25, I can see in here. Do we have an idea of how many registered for the webinar? Should we wait a little bit more?
70 have registered for the webinar, but we can start in another 1 or 2 minutes to cover the webinar on time.
One more minute and we'll start. The recording will be available then for anyone who didn't make it live.
Just a little bit of a checklist before we get started. I'm going to ask everybody to keep their mics off and their cameras off during the presentation. And if you have any questions or comments during the presentation, you can put them on the chat, and we're going to have a Q&A session in the end to discuss those questions. So you can communicate in there. Just a second here.
Okay, Camilla, I think you can start. We'll go ahead.
And Sandeep, if you can kindly keep an eye on the chat for me, because when I'm presenting, I'm not seeing exactly what's going on in the chat. So thank you so much.
Sure, thank
you. So the topic today is lower costs and routes to market, like Dr. John mentioned. And we're going to try to explore a bit of those topics and just move to the next slide. Can you see it moving?
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. What about now?
Okay, now.
Yes, perfect. So today's webinar, we're going to have the content covered in basically 2 sessions. Okay, so then one session will cover the lower cost part, where we're going to kind of go through like an overview of business costs and cost reduction challenge, supply chain optimization. I'm going to talk briefly about this. And then in the end, Dr. John is going to present some interesting case studies on energy efficiency and with companies in Ireland. And the second part of the webinar today will be in routes to market. We're going to also cover briefly some points, important points, and like an overview of how to select right route to market, and also equipment as service, manufacturing as service, and some case studies in the end. And we will have the Q&A for a few minutes for us to discuss that. So we're going to try to get this the overview of those topics and see how it kind of aligns with the project goal. And I brought 2 start to kind of freshen up our heads about what is the main initiatives inside in-transit project. And here we have a nice graphic that exemplifies the journey inside the project. And for sure, for the beneficiaries of the Innovate voucher, you probably know in which step you're now, We are now in Innovate Voucher, that is the coaching, the group sessions and the individual coaching. If you're a beneficiary company, you are probably getting contact to cover your coaching hours. And also for the companies that are joining us today, that they're not beneficiaries of this voucher.
Θα φας και ψωμάκι.
Apologies. Sorry, can you keep your mics off, please? Thank you. Yes. So just continuing here. So the Innovate, the main goal of this voucher is to support the SMEs and the companies just through the self-exploration of the current business models. We know that we had other webinars that cover different topics like financials and business model. So all those service is to support the companies getting insights for them to develop a new business model, like a new circular business model, a new product. And hopefully today we can, with lower costs and routes to market, we keep like supporting you guys on that. So let's just start here. First section is we're going to cover lower costs. So here we brought like a bit of what are the business costs. Here we have some examples. Getting to know what are your costs, what are your operational costs is really important. So if you just a few examples here: fixed costs, variable costs. We're not going to go in detail on those ones, but I think it's important to point out that when you are writing an application for funding, it's important that you bring those definitions. If you mention there that you have a new process, that it's somehow a sustainable process or a step in your manufacturing line, as an example, you have to show that if you are minimizing waste or reducing costs in some points, you have to bring a bit of more definition of things. So then it's always good to know which cost actually you are working on reducing, and where some costs they're fixed, so you won't be able to kind of change much, but some of them they're flexible. So knowing the type of costs, operational costs, and how to apply the techniques and actions, it's important. So this is just a reminder when you write in applications, because all the funding applications, when you are developing an idea or a new product, you have to do a bit of the costs, and it's important to put those definitions in there. So another point that is, when you are kind of building up your lower costs kind of strategy plan, it's important to manage expectations, I guess. So then the challenge there, one important point in here, and how do you reduce costs but also maintain quality of your products, of your process, of your service, and how do you align this plan of reducing the costs with the company goals? So most of the companies, they have a really clear goal for the next year. So then how do you apply those techniques and still in alignment with your goals? How to use which technology investments are out there? So all those challenges in here, just going through them quickly. I guess we will have more examples on the case studies, but it's just to catch a bit of attention, just for when you're writing this application, just to pay attention on those, to mention that there is a challenge on reducing costs. I don't think it's mentioned here, but also employee and workforce. Like, so all those things has to be considered when you're writing your lower costs strategy. And customer perception, regulatory compliance. So all those are challenges we're gonna see further down the presentation. So legislations and regulatory compliance. So all this has to be in alignment with your strategy, and it's better get them verified beforehand before start to implement any new process, any new technology. Just moving on here. So this graphic, it's kind of a bit of tips and steps on how to cut costs in manufacturing, more or less. Where would you put your attention on analyzing? And I think it's interesting. Just quickly go through those. First thing, you kind of run an audit in your facility. You have to know clearly your operational costs. So you need to understand and identify exactly what's going on, and before taking any action. And one other point you can consider is, once you know exactly your operational costs, what type of costs, when you map that, what are the actions you can take and where. So optimizing workforce is one of them. So you can always review staff hours and optimize employee efficiency. This probably will include training and some technologies or softwares that could support employee productivity. So all those things would go in here, optimizing the workforce. Optimizing process, also to use new softwares or tools to optimize the production line, maybe to redesign a process that it could have less waste, or do the same product or the process in less time. That will save also costs in there. The next one is negotiate with suppliers. So once you know exactly your supplier chain in there, you can maybe identify reliable suppliers and try to negotiate, always try to review and negotiate with them. And if you can buy exactly what you need, that's a way as well to avoid waste, and etc. So review materials is to evaluate, can you afford, can you make changes in there and get something that is more affordable? Also considering quality, considering all the goals and strategy of the company. So this is something that can be reviewed as well. Oops, just coming back. Review design, redesign, and recycling. So this is the sustainability part, and that's one of our main goals in this project in Transit, to foster resilience and sustainability within the SMEs and support you on your green transition and in your circularity practice. So can you review your process? Can you review your product? Can you redesign it so then you can have less waste on the end of the manufacturing line? So this is another point. Review the miscellaneous costs. So small costs, sometimes we don't kind of pay attention to them. So, and it's something important because it's office supply, like examples here, office supply, cleaning products, cleaning service, uniforms. So in the overall operational costs, those are the smalls, but if you apply some small actions here, you can reduce the costs in the end, maybe of the year, in a significant amount. The next one, review your rents and maintenance budget. So if you have to periodically just run maintenance in your business, in your company, just review those, go for better options, review if the payments for rents, they're fair, if you can change to a different space with better options, that's an option as well, and that is good to review. Reduce packaging, so the companies are, of course, cost-wise, but also environmentally speaking, the packaging, if you can reduce packaging on your products, would be one option here. And another option is reduce energy consumption. Dr. John is going to mention some case studies on that. And just moving forward, and one other strategy or method that you can apply in your lower cost plan is to run analysis in your supply chain, to optimize your supply chain. So here's just briefly, we won't go in detail on those ones, but some of points that you can use to analyze your supply chain is to see the end-to-end visibility, the demand planning, inventory management, supply relationship management, transportation, technology integration, risk management. applying lean principles to optimize your process and save costs. I think I'm just cautious about the time here. Now I'm gonna hand over to you, John, to keep going with the lower costs.
Thanks, Camilla. So we want to, I suppose, position where this is coming from, and you're hopefully engaging in this coaching because we're looking towards the next set of vouchers, which are the Develop program, with potentially 48,000 euros available to your business. And there will be certain strategic areas, whether it's digitalization or sustainability. And obviously the focus that we're discussing today is about how you will present the benefits to your business or the reductions in cost to your business that will accrue. So for us, it's very important that there's an added value from the development of innovation. We work and meet with companies all of the time. And so I'm going to take you through a couple of slides just around our experience of working with companies and what maybe they can and how they can benefit from innovation that adds value. It always comes back to data. Can you get data? Can you use it to have data-driven decision making? Can you analyze the data? And can that, can you implement your new innovations or your optimization of your process or your product based on the data? The best way in our experience to get data is from cyber-physical systems like IoT or control systems or sensors in your factory. And what are cyber-physical systems? They connect people, processes, machines, and products to each other and generally share a volume of data to allow us to draw conclusions. That might be about better maintenance, better optimization, better capacity planning, better supply chain connectivity. It's typically necessary in these times to use tools like data analytics. The data that's gathered in most enterprises is considerable, and there are very good tools available to do data analytics, to apply machine learning or deep learning techniques, or even artificial intelligence tools to give insights that humans wouldn't be able to do. So we always want to move beyond Excel spreadsheets, and to be looking at more tool-driven or analytic-driven data. And that all kind of ties in with Industry 4.0, where a large emphasis is around optimizing your operations, as Camilla mentioned a number of times, in a number of different areas, primarily to reduce costs. Yeah, you can go ahead. Just as an example, just back one, across the sector, in Europe, one of the studies that advanced analytics and predictive maintenance can help companies avoid downtime of about 50%. Many companies are constrained in their production capacity, particularly small companies, but often some of that production capacity is unused because of machine downtime or production line downtime. And so, improved maintenance can really add significantly to the output from the factory, increase production by up to 20%. And it's some of the very easy targets to go after. Across the EU, if the top 100 companies manage to reduce or eliminate all of their scrap and defects, they could save 160 billion euros. So your company might be smaller than that, but I'm sure there are targets you could achieve within your company if you eliminated all wasted steps and defected products. Yeah, you can go to the next one. So there's a couple of key areas that we've seen around Industry 4.0, which have added value to business, or where digitalization has added value. It's been very obvious in sectors like the automotive industry, where you've seen lots of production lines with robots over the last nearly 20 years now. And that was the first wave. You've seen it in logistics, Amazon and their warehouses full of robots doing fulfillment of orders. So these have been the early stage adopters, essentially, of digitalization and technology, and the value that has been added to those companies through that has been very significant. The area we're probably in right now is around that mechanical and engineering, so discrete manufacturing companies where people are making products, making parts whether for customers or for other business. Very significant potential to add value there because of things like machine utilization, faster cycles, and better connectivity to the customer. And then the other areas are you can see the potential added value in the second and third wave are smaller. In aerospace and chemicals, it's because these are regulated industries, so the potential for innovation is a little bit more capped. The same in the medical technology areas. So that kind of makes sense. There's only so much you can innovate if you are in a deeply regulated environment. And in some chemical plants, they're built for 25 or 35 years of operation. So it's not as easy to optimize. So the really good opportunity at the moment is in that discrete manufacturing space. What happens to companies who adopt digitalization? Well, as an example here, typically profitability doubles, in this case from 6% to 13%. That is achieved through plant utilization. So they get more output from the assets that they already have in the company. You can see there an increase from 65% to 90%. And typically cost savings accrue from a reduction in staff. That mightn't be an actual reduction in staff, but it may be a growth in production without an increase in the number of staff working in the company. You can skip on. And that brings me to one of the questions we often get is around robotics and will all of our jobs be replaced? So the most recent estimate from the OECD is that 1 in 7 jobs in advanced economies are likely to lose their jobs to automation. And that's just not just robots, but it's automation of software, tools and processes. But robotics is a key area for companies in the manufacturing sector to be more resilient, to be more sustainable and more digital and more profitable. This chart, which is the number of robots installed per 10,000 workers in the manufacturing industry, you can see is really South Korea are very far ahead, followed by Japan, Germany, and China, and Sweden, USA. And those numbers are still quite low. The number of robots in operations has nearly doubled in the last 3 years around the world. COVID was a very significant driver. But if I work down that chart, the UK last year was around 120 robots per 10,000 employees. Ireland is well underneath that at about 80 robots per 10,000 employees. And many European countries are under 100. I mentioned Amazon earlier. If Amazon was a country, they would be second on that list with about 700 robots per 10,000 employees installed. But it's a huge and very rapidly growing area. And it really is a very significant driver of 2 areas of business. One is reducing costs. But secondly, and probably more importantly, about expanding capacity. If you have a plan over the next 5 years to grow your manufacturing site to double your output, well, it's in most developed countries, it's very difficult to develop that increasing capacity. If you need to hire twice as many people to do so. It's almost impossible to hire into manufacturing in Ireland. So any increase in future growth has to come from automation, has to come from robots, and from moving people into more value-added jobs within the company. But it is certainly, if your competitors are intensively investing in robotics, they're going to reduce their unit costs considerably. And as a competitor, you're going to be in a more difficult position. So at a country level, this is very obvious from the installation rate of robotics. But at a more local level, we think between companies, this will also become more and more significant. Thanks, Will. And sustainability, as I said, is a goal of the In-Transit project. We've worked with many companies to reduce their costs around their energy, particularly their electrical and gas consumption. The graph that's shown here is actually the annual consumption of a fairly large manufacturing plant. And the spikes and drops indicate the 52 weeks of the year. So there's a larger amount of production happening on Monday to Friday. There's a summer shutdown there, the first major dip, and a Christmas shutdown as well. So you can see where the electricity consumption in the plant and in this case, in this factory, is nearly 5 million euros a year. The electricity consumption drops significantly at weekends, but it doesn't drop to zero. And during the shutdown in the summer, it doesn't drop to zero. And during the Christmas, when everyone is gone away, it still doesn't drop to zero. There is a lot of standby power consumption, machines that are left on, lights that are left on, equipment that's left running, technical services like air compressors or steam that are still running when they're not being used. And our work and our estimates show that in most companies, about 20% of the electricity consumption is unnecessary. Now, if you want to save money, then that's obviously the first area to go after. And we have a methodology where we work with companies using a lean approach and digital tools to identify that wasted energy and then to put in place either behavioral change, so asking people to change how they operate, or putting in control solutions that automatically switch off consumption or highlight it or make it visible so that people can have the tools to manage it. And that can be quite significant. So I'm going to mention a couple of case studies here, maybe quite quickly. One, Takumi, the first one, and actually that's one of their machines, is the picture there. We worked with them just to make what was happening in their machines visible, to add monitoring systems onto the machines that would show the actual numbers of jobs being completed, the time scale for each one, the amount of shutdown time on the machine, and just the status of each order. And the key goal and the key saving was to be able to provide their customer with real-time reporting on the on-time delivery. So if they have orders from their main client, they want it to become much more accurate. And that has grown their business significantly, because they moved from a score of 80% with their main client to a score of over 90% in terms of giving that customer clarity on when an exact part would be delivered. And that's done through a cloud-based dashboard that the customer has access to. And it has nearly doubled the volume of business they've received from the customer. In Boston Scientific, within the production lines, we worked with them on automated data collection. So typical in the medtech sector, you'd have sampling of products and they go away to a lab and they get tested, and there's a delay time, and you could have a faulty product made for a period of days before you then have to maybe rework it. By putting in, we've done this in a couple of companies, some intelligence-based reporting directly at the point of sampling, that can have significant time savings. And apologies. And Stryker, who are a medical device company as well, they just by firstly monitoring the data of what was happening in their additive manufacturing production line, they were able to identify a number of problems, which by applying some real-time analytics and then just some optimization of how the process worked, they got a 60% reduction in machine downtime. Now, that's a significant increase in capacity and resulted in better quality of the parts also being made. Okay, next one. Next slide. Okay. Might not be I'm not sure if it's the right brand name for all of the markets who are on here, but Loctite is a type of glue, and it's made around the world, a number of plants. The process in Ireland is run by a company called Henkel. They used the data mining of over 5 years of their SCADA information on how the process was run. But by applying some new data analytic techniques, they were able to go back and associate drops in production at various stages with signals that they had and data that they already had from the operation of different parts of the process. This was the kind of insight that manually you couldn't see. It was something that had happened over a long period of time. By identifying it, they were able to increase the throughput in the plant by 5%. And I can tell you that that's a significant added value. And it was also achieved through a reduced amount of defects or process deviations, which was the cost saving that came from that. In Lufthansa Technics, which is an aviation company, they do repair and reconditioning of engine parts for Lufthansa. Part of that process is often rebuilding the metal using electron discharge machines. The wear and tear on the tooling, which are their productive assets, was quite significant. But through better prediction of the wear, again, data added through an IoT solution onto the machines, actually nearly doubled the capacity of the existing machines and avoided a very significant €3 million investment in a new machine. Similarly, in Zimmer Biomet, we worked with them on real-time monitoring on some grinding machines. And again, significant improvements in reliability and cost reductions. The mean time to repair greatly reduced because the prediction of what the failure mode was much more accurate and timely. And it reduced the unplanned maintenance, which was one of their major issues with machine stopping. And then, do you have the right parts? Do you have the right people? Do you have, and instead moving to a better condition-based monitoring, and that using that to trigger when maintenance will fit within the production schedule or within other downtimes. So it got significant. That project was initially run on one machine, but they have 18 Haas grinders in, and they're now in the process of rolling that out across all of those. And then finally, on in terms of energy efficiency. It's the next slide. Yeah, just over many years now, we've worked through a number of initiatives. They're just listed there on the side: Speedier, Tempo, and DigiEco, helping companies, particularly on their electrical energy consumption. But the techniques have application in water usage, in gas usage, and in what we call the technical services in the company, compressed air and steam. So Penn Engineering is an SME based in Ireland with quite a significant business. Their energy costs have gone up 300% over the last 2 years or so, 2.5 years, which is quite significant. They have grown their production by 30% in that time, but the energy costs have gone up by 300%. So they've done a lot of analysis now to identify where energy is being used, and they're looking for what we call significant energy reduction opportunities. So where is energy used, where is it wasted, and what can be done, in either in behavioral change or design of solutions. They've just completed their first project, which is to save €40,000 on 4 washers, which again were left running continuously, even though only used for part of the time. So, and I think they'll have a pipeline of significant similar changes. Depuis are a company who make medical implants. By looking again at basically how they optimize their production planning process, they were able to route products through a production process that used less energy. So the obvious question was, why can't you do that all the time? And by doing that all of the time, they were able to save €100,000 a quarter, actually, over their previous practice. Cook Medical, a medtech company in Limerick, did something quite similar, looking at where energy is used in production, and got an immediate 10% saving just from better management and a reduction from their base year, which with the current increase in costs would also be quite a significant saving, and that will now be reinvested to gain other savings in the company. Takumi, the company I mentioned already, are an SME we've worked with on a number of initiatives. We looked at their weekend energy consumption when they typically have no machines running. We were able to reduce that by half. The annual bill at the time for the company was about €100,000. The saving was about 20,000. And over a year, that accrued to a reasonably significant saving, but also avoided some investments that they thought they needed, such as a new air compressor. We showed them how fixing leaks would actually save them money and save them investing in a new air compressor for just small maintenance efforts. And then that also led to other reductions in costs that accrued because of those changes. Okay, I think that's it for me. Camilla, is there one more? That's it. Next one. Yeah, so just, we thought we'd pause for a minute here. If anybody had any questions, if you want to put them into the chat, I don't see any coming so far, around energy reductions or cost savings in your business, or if anyone has any areas they suggest companies should look at. Again, we want to see in the proposals coming forward in January, innovations and would that clearly show added value or cost savings for companies.
I guess so. There's no questions. I think, John. I think we can keep going, and then we have the Q&A in the end for both sessions.
We're a little behind time, so yeah, the next bit is short.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you. And we're going to start this section, the second one, that is routes to market. We're going to explore this topic now. Just having trouble moving the slides. Yeah, so when you're deciding which route to take, there's some points that you should consider, and somehow the costs is one of the points when you're choosing your route to market. So then they're kind of linked there somehow. So the routes to market strategies is actually to determine which distribution channel you're going to use to deliver your product to the final customer. So the choice of the routes depends on the factors like the nature of the region and nature of the product, the target market, like if there's a niche for that specific service or product, the competitiveness and the resources. So it's important for the business like to have a combination of all of this, and we're just gonna go, it'll be like an exploratory a discussion on those. So then before you start, like I would decide to expand my business model to another route to market, to another distribution channel. So before you start in that, you have to ask your questions, answer those questions. You're going to have an idea on how to start. So then one of them is, who are your consumers? Are they business or government agencies? Are you selling a product or service? So all these definitions, I guess we had a webinar in business models with the guys, Andrew, and this was covered there as well. So then all those questions you have to answer before you're taking this new distribution channel. So do you need to persuade your customers to buy your product or service, or will they seek it out of necessity? So those definitions kind of align your maybe marketing strategy further down. So do your customers need to inspect your goods before buying them? Some companies you buy online, you receive in your house, you don't try them on before you're buying it. So those are different channels in there. Will your customers see your product as a service, as a big investment, a mid investment? So this is something that it's important to define. Are you targeting your product as a service, a local, regional? So the geographic, demographic side of things, it matters as well. Is your product or service something the customer can use out of the box, or does it need to be installed or built? So all this matters. And just moving in here, we won't cover detail of each one of the distribution channels or routes that you could take, but this is more like an overview. What are the kind of the steps you have to look at before you deciding what is the right route to market to your new business model? So here we have this quite nice graph, and the first one is the customers. So understanding your target customers and knowing their preference and demographics, all this is important to define your niche, if your product or service has this market niche in there. Second will be the channels. So okay, once you define which are your target customers and preference and etc., okay, let's evaluate which routes or channels are the best options, and just compare them and see which ones are the best for this product that you're creating, and also keeping the traditional and the digital options open. Again, here the costs, we were talking about costs previously. So then here, when you're like, let's say that you identified like a few routes that you could take for that new product, new business model. So how do you decide which one you're going to go for? Cost analysis is one thing that could help you to define this. Market access, so review the market access options and coverage, geographically speaking, that's important, I mentioned before. Identify the partners inside that channel that you're selecting to take on. Customer experiences, this is like in a customer perspective. So then is it product or service? What is the convenience of it? Is it easy to purchase? Do I click it online and buy? Support, is there any customer support? So all those things matters. Flexibility also, so once you're selecting which channel you're going to be using, a channel that is flexible would be an adaptable would be an option for you to consider. Legal consideration that I mentioned before, and this is something that I don't think you can escape of. So then you have to be aware of all legal matters and requirements for that specific distribution channel or route you're taking. So just keep that in mind. Competitive landscape. So then if there is competitors that are out there, and analyze how they're getting to their target, so that might help get some insights on it. And technology and innovation, like John mentioned, some embrace technological advancements. This is important to enhance your distribution channel, like the supply chain optimization. And our feedback and interaction in here. This is something that collect information and data from customers, so then you can continuously improve your process and your product. Now we'll hand over to you, John, for the next part. Thank you.
Thanks, Mila. So yeah, just in terms of, I suppose, for the next stage of In Transit, the development projects that we're looking for, there's there's quite a change or new emphasis in the servitization, as it's called, or new business models that can arise from digital technologies or the availability of digital tools and services. And that value creation is in manufacturing is shifting to some extent from purely a production or a product based to an added value or a service based offering. And that might be to a greater or lesser extent, but it may be that you now sell your machine with a greater warranty or support or online remote monitoring and fault detection, or right up to, as I'll mention in a minute, some of the companies who have moved to completely selling a service that includes the machine or the equipment, but it's actually the service that you can buy. One of the key value points in many of these new business models is that it isn't necessarily one company that's delivering the entire thing. It's a combination of companies, and what's very important is the platform. So you have a product or a service, but you also have the platform that it's delivered through. And so in many cases, those successful companies are partnering with the people who either host the platforms or can develop that part of the service offering. So they're often not, so for many companies, they say, how can I jump into changing what I currently make to supply it as a service? But often it's about partnering and clustering with other companies who have the expertise that you need to find the new value creation, where each partner can win, essentially. Okay, next one. So if we take, for example, if I'm making small CNC machines, and if I instead supply them as a service, the companies that have gone down this route, equipment as a service, have shown 400% more revenue. And and it's securing new markets, it's securing more sales. It suits the end user better because they're buying OpEx, operational capacity, rather than buying the capital up front. It's the same moving, from purchasing a car up front to buying a rental or to having a rental agreement. It's more controllable, particularly for smaller businesses, around the costs. And it's really fast growing new business model that's out there, and it delivers quite a bit of additional added value. So if I'm supplying my machines to you, I can also obviously then be monitoring those machines. I can be getting data from those machines. I can be tracking their usage in the actual operations, and I know when they need maintenance. I know when the tools are wearing. I know when there are problems, and therefore I can better manage all of the logistics around supporting the service. They typically are, for the end user, are more precise in terms of usage costs, so they know what their bills are going to be. They're not going to face a sudden unexpected replacement cost or breakdown cost. And they tend to get more valuable data because of that digital feedback or monitoring of the assets. And a study I just saw in the last few weeks said that more than 70% of manufacturers are expecting to use services as a key differentiator. So if you go to one of the major trade fairs now, it won't be about selling you a machine, it's about selling you a machine and selling you an extensive support package of services. And getting that balance between 100% you buy the machine, or 0% of the machine, you just buy the service, is an interesting, very interesting and innovative aspect of business at the moment. And next one. So there's a number, you can Google these. They're well-known case studies. Rolls-Royce engines nearly 20 years ago started going down a business model of supplying not just jet engines to aircraft companies, but supplying power by the hour. So you could purchase X number of thousands of hours of propulsion of your planes, and Rolls-Royce have developed that considerably over the years, and they now have a full digital twin running live of each machine or each engine that's in service around the world. Because each engine is different. If you're flying over predominantly the Middle East and sandy environments, it's very different to flying over the Arctic and the Northern Hemisphere. So the live monitoring data from each engine is being constantly uploaded into their digital twin, and they're using that to manage and optimize. And it has hugely improved the reliability of their engines. About 15 years ago, Hilti went into selling holes for large construction sites in particular. So they if you're building, if you're a developer, you need 1,000 different types of drills and drill bits and many pieces, and they get broken. And instead you can buy 10,000 holes, and the Hilti will provide all of the technology and the equipment, the drills, the maintenance, and the support services needed to ensure you have everything you need to make that those holes happen. Michelin similarly moved to, instead of selling tires, they sell miles, and they've gone beyond that. Even they have sensors now in their tires on planes that measure every time a plane lands and takes off, so they know what the wear pattern may be. And by bringing in additional monitoring, so this is particularly for fleet hire trucks, they brought this in first in the States, and they discovered very quickly that by the fact that they were monitoring the usage of the tires meant they could very quickly look at how the trucks were being operated, and they could see some providers were better than others, and they could look for best practice and share that with the other companies. They could see that certain drivers were more efficient in the wear and tear on the tires, because you could see the braking patterns, and so they could help companies to provide training and upskilling the drivers to drive more sustainably. And similarly, Xerox moved from selling printing machines to selling tens of thousands of copies of printed documents. But they've actually expanded that business from adding those digital tools to now doing full document workflow. And actually, they're one of the biggest investors currently in these large language models that can be used to search or categorize large volumes of documents. So they've used their move into the digital realm to actually spawn a new business, which in the end of the day may well be the bigger business than actually making the printers. So how can you translate back if that's to your company? Well, it's really what is really valuable to your customer. In the end of the day, if I'm a machining company and I want to make a metal part, I just want to make a metal part. I don't want to be an expert in the machine. Okay, I have to be an expert at the moment to make the part, but I really would love to have somebody else take that responsibility. And I want the machine to always work and to be doing what it's supposed to do. So it's figuring out in your marketplace what's really valuable to your customers and to your future customers, not necessarily the ones you have today. But that's just, and as I said, we're looking for these interesting kind of innovative steps in the development of companies. And the last slide, Camilla, I think, coming up to the end, just also manufacturing as a service is growing. And just as an example, is one of our cluster companies. They're called WASP. They were founded about 5 years ago by two people, Shane and Mariana. And they now have, I think it's 28 staff. They're opening a second factory in Austria, and they have huge plans for expansion. So you can order a part from or that's made by WASP, but you won't know it. You will order a part from IKEA, similar to this hand, which is mounted on a wall and you hang your coat on it. And there's a variety of these there. If anyone is familiar with IKEA, it's one of their lines. That may well be made in Ireland by WASP. You just won't know. You order it on the website from IKEA, and they put it in an IKEA box. They make it to order on. It's a fully 3D additive manufacturing site. It's fully digital. Every product they make, the orders come in automatically. It goes to the machines automatically. The parts are made and get all the way to the shipping line without much human touch. And they have developed a very nice secondary manufacturing business, and you can see the customers they've already secured. They're currently doing glasses that you go on some websites and you pick your frame and color and shape and style, because again, that's small batch customized orders, and they're doing same in the footwear industry for runners, where people, again, enter specific sizes and it's customized to them. So their goal isn't a company to be that the name of. Their goal is to win the business from the companies that are well-known brands in their sector. And they manage the whole process. So they initially brought on board a 3D printer company, and they've worked on building the entire end-to-end digital structure. So you can go in now and customize a part with them, have it on your website, and have orders being taken for it in quite a short process. They have over 70 companies that they make products for at that stage. So quite a nice success story in one of our cluster companies, and quite an impressive. It's quite impressive to see the operation, but they've built that operation out of a very small startup, and grown it by winning the business, and fulfilling the client's orders better. Okay, I think that was just an exploration of maybe ideas for people around looking at new business possibilities, looking at maybe proposals that they might connect with other platforms to offer their product or service. And back to you, Camilla.
Thank you, John. Okay, we came to an end now to our presentation. I'm going to open for Q&A. If you have any questions, you can open your mic and your camera, or you can just pop the question in the chat for us. Just give guys a few minutes. Hopefully the presentation was somehow insightful and useful for you guys. if you have any questions or even comments about, we still have a few minutes left.